Hey folks, Matt Easton here, Scholar Gladiatoria. So I made a video a couple of weeks ago about Wonder Woman's sword. Now, before those of you who don't like these kind of videos turn off, I am actually going to talk about ancient period swords. Not in great depth, but a little bit. And I made various criticisms of the design of that sword based on what I considered to be a character that is supposed to be from the ancient Greek period. And I kind of consider that she should have been carrying something akin to, shall we say, something like a hoplite Xiphos, something like this, okay? And I made several points about things that I didn't like about the design of that sword. One of the things, and the thing that I absolutely would stick with, was the length of the hilt and the design of the pommel. Not only do I think this is kind of wrong, kind of for that period and for that style of sword and for the way that she uses the sword predominantly, although one eagle-eyed viewer did point out that she does hold it two-handed at one point. But generally speaking, it's intended to be used with a shield. She, famously uses a shield, and in fact, she has the shield pretty much more often than she has the sword, and therefore, it doesn't make an awful lot of sense having what's essentially like a long sword hilt on what's essentially a short sword, or at least an arming sword. I also made some criticism about the guard, and I'll come back and talk about that in a minute. But to cut to the chase, I was talking with Shad about this, of Shadiversity, of course, link below. In fact, link below specifically to a video that Shad made that was a response to my video. Now, these response videos are always good because, first of all, it's like a discussion, isn't it? So I like it when people do response videos to my videos, and then I can do a response to their response, and that's what this is. And the one point that he took not really umbrage with, but the one point he said he didn't really completely agree with was I made some criticism about the size of the blade of Wonder Woman's sword, and he showed some examples of ancient period swords that were as long, or apparently as long. Obviously we're guessing partly the length of the movie prop sword in the movie, but they seemed original swords, both Bronze Age and Iron Age, which appear to be as long as hers. And absolutely, I agree, and that's why, so in fairness to Shad, he did point out that I said most swords of that period are not particularly long, and this I should have accentuated and clarified this point more. Incidentally, I should mention at one point, I am holding in my hand a reproduction Bronze Age era sword, a Ewart Park style leaf blade sword, and I don't know why. I have actually showed this to my Patreon viewers. For those of you who don't know, I do unique videos on my Patreon channel, again link below, and I have talked about this on my Patreon channel before, but I don't think I've done it on a kind of open YouTube public video. And clearly this is a short sword. I mean, you can see it's a similar kind of size and length to things like the Moro Chris's behind my back, which clearly, even compared to a European hanger, the European hanger looks long compared to this type of Bronze Age sword. But Shad is completely correct that, of course, there were Bronze Age swords which were really long, some really long ones, and Iron Age swords that were really long. So I wouldn't dispute that at all, and Shad's completely correct, and his video is well worth watching, again, the link below. And it is absolutely true that in the ancient era, from different cultures from different parts of Europe, you do occasionally find really long bladed examples of swords of many types. You can find long leaf blades, you can find long so-called rapiers, as they bizarrely, I think it's a Victorian thing, they sometimes call these Bronze Age rapiers. You can find long versions of those. And indeed, of course, famously, the Germanic tribes and the Celtic tribes who were fighting the Romans in the, let's say, the 1st century AD and 1st century BC, were using long iron bladed swords, Iron Age swords, and they were long, and there's references in Roman sources to these sometimes bending and having to be straightened underfoot and this kind of stuff. Now clearly, using a longer bladed sword does make a certain amount of sense. This links into one of Metatron's videos, incidentally, about gladiuses. I always have such problems with that word. The plural of gladius. And I am intending to also do at some point a response video to that video, not because I disagree or anything like that, but just because I might have a couple of things to add. And it's a subject that I've been meaning to make a video about for a long time, but my mate Raffaello got in there first. You know, fair play to him. So absolutely, in some cases longer bladed swords were used with certain types of shields and certain types of warfare, and in other types of warfare with other types of shields and other types of armour, shorter swords were preferred for various reasons. I have my own very strong opinions about why you would use a short sword in certain scenarios, with certain types of shield and with certain types of warfare, but that's for another video. But coming back to Wonder Woman's sword, my absolute point should have been more clear that I'm not saying that in the ancient world they didn't have long-bladed swords. They did. However, I do think it's fair to say that most Bronze Age and most Iron Age swords aren't particularly long, by the context, by the comparison of later period swords. And so really when I'm talking about what I think Wonder Woman's sword should be like, I kind of think, yeah, okay, she could have a long bladed sword, fine. So we could just say, let's change the design of Wonder Woman's hilt and leave the blade the same and it would be okay. Yeah, I guess kind of. But I just kind of think it would scream more ancient world. It would scream more kind of ancient Greece to me if the blade was shorter than it is in that movie. So there we go. And you know, this Ewart Park sword is pretty short. It's about the size of a gladius, leaf-shaped blade. Incidentally, this is made, well, no, I'll clarify. I was going to say this is made by Neil Burridge. It's not entirely true. This was cast by Neil Burridge, and many years ago I was lucky enough to go on a Bronze Age sword making course, and I have never got round to hilting the stupid thing. I've even got the bits of the hilt and I've never got round to it. You know me, I always have lots of projects on the go and I'm really bad at finishing things. But anyway, I went on a brilliant Bronze Age making course with Neil Burridge. I'll put a link below to Neil Burridge Bronze Age swords. Fantastic guy, great swords, as far as I'm aware, the most accurate reproduction Bronze Age swords that you can buy online. This is the kind of size of thing that I'm thinking about. If I'm thinking Wonder Woman and I'm thinking she's using some ancient sword that was ancient by the time that she's got it, it's going to be something more like this kind of size in general. But I absolutely concede, Shad, you're right. It could be a longer bladed sword, absolutely. Right, the final thing I'm going to mention is, in discussing this whole topic with Shad, he posted me a link which had some nice swords on it with measurements, and we both looked at it and went, holy crap, there's a sword there, evidently a well-known sword to archaeologists, not to me, that has a guard like Wonder Woman's sword guard in the movie. And I think this absolutely must have been the inspiration for the design of Wonder Woman's movie sword. So there you go. What did you know? There was something I didn't know about swords. Well, in fact, there's lots of things I don't know about swords. It just goes to show that sometimes, you know, you think you know quite a bit about a topic and you can look at something which in a movie might look outrageous or really ugly to you, and lo and behold, there's some historical example of that thing which it's actually based on, or at least similar to. And I have to put my hands up at this point, and just go, look, there you go. There's a good example. Sometimes there's some bit of history or some bit of archaeological artifact that you didn't know about. So there we go. And hopefully, if my editing's gone well, you're looking at a picture of it right now. And I think it's absolutely fascinating that that guard exists. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. If someone had said to me a month ago, oh, you know that sword in Wonder Woman, that guard on it, that's actually based on a real archaeological example, I would have gone, yeah, right, bullshit. But, you know, it just goes to show. So there we go, folks. I may stand here in front of you talking about swords and weapons and warfare, and sometimes there's something that I'm wrong about, sometimes there's something I didn't know. So full credit and thanks to Shad for essentially pointing me to that link that then made me notice the thing, and also, you know, thanks to him for making that video. And Hopefully in the future I will do some more videos talking about ancient world weapons, and you know, maybe I need to get a hilt actually put on this thing, but at least it is holdable. I also incidentally do have a very nice quality gladius blade which also needs hilting, so maybe I just need to send these things off to someone like Todd to get hilts made for them at some point. Absolutely I will start doing a little bit I do intend to do some more videos about ancient world arms and armour. It's just that, as you guys know, I specialise in medieval and later, so I don't have a lot of that stuff around to demonstrate, but nevertheless I can now edit those things into my video, so that's probably what I'll be doing in coming weeks, months. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching and see you next time. Cheers folks. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and feel free to follow us on Facebook.